Hello everyone, welcome to day 2 of Chess Olympiad 2024 in Budapest. Uh, Today we'll be going over the second round of the game between Gukesh and Vignir Stefansson. So India was playing Iceland today. Gukesh, being on board 1, was playing the Icelandic GM Vignir Stefansson, who is rated 2531, who is around like 230 points below rated than Gukesh. So Gukesh was technically a very big favorite to win the match. But as we all know, this kind of rating differences doesn't mean much in these high pressure events like the Olympiad, where any grandmaster can outperform anyone on a given day. So today was the first game that Gukesh is playing because he didn't play yesterday, and the white player is a very strong grandmaster from Iceland, who is also a very solid player. He starts with d4, the queen's pawn opening. Gukesh plays knight f6, c4, e6, and white goes knight f3, not going into the nimzo or the main line, as he's suspected that Gukesh must be having a lot of preparation here. So knight f3 is another main line. Uh, so white says that I'm not going to give you the opportunity to pin my knight, and I'll slowly develop after you commit to your own plans. So black has like 2, 3, or 4 plans here. Black can go c5, the Benoni. Black can go d5, the classic Queen's Gambit declined. Black can go b6, that's the Queen's Indian. But black can even go bishop b4 here, giving a check and hoping white will play knight c3, which is the Bogo Indian. And the fifth option, which is not very common, but Gukesh plays it in this game, h6. So this is a very interesting idea. This is, as I said, this is just a waiting move. So black says, you want to see my plans? I want to see your plans first. So h6 is always a interesting idea because it stops any kind of bishop g5 ideas after black goes d5. And also, if white plays something like knight c3, black can again go bishop b4 and transpose into nimzo. But this time white goes g3, the Catalan. Here Gukesh plays bishop b4, bishop d2. White can also play knight b d2, which is another main line here. Black can then go various moves like c5, d5, b6. Everything is possible. The main idea of knight b d2 is to take the double bishops here. But white goes bishop d2, black goes bishop e7. So this little maneuver has helped black in getting this bishop in this awkward square of d2, where it's blocking its own queen. It's not really doing anything on d2 because it has no real targets from d2, so he has to move again to like f4 or c3. So white goes bishop g2, castles, castle, d5. Black has almost transposed into the main Catalan, but this move is an extra, but it shouldn't really matter much here. White goes queen c2, protecting the c4 pawn. Black goes c6, going for the triangle setup. Rook d1, knight b d7, just developing his pieces. Bishop f4. So finally he has to move this bishop again. So this two moves by us is neutralized. Black goes a5. This is a very new idea. It has been in practice like for the last 2 or 3 years. Black says that I'm still going to wait for your idea. Like, what do you do? Do you go for e4? Do you go for knight b d2? Do you go for b3 even? And if you go for something like knight b2, I'll just wait and I'll just take more space with the a4. Then I might go queen a5. Like it's just saying, if you go e4, I don't care. I can just take, 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 knight f6, and then I'll go queen a5, which is actually fine for black. White goes knight c3, which is the correct square for the knight. But here the problem is it blocks this queen's way of protecting the c4 pawn. So black just takes the pawn, but white of course didn't blunder it. White will go knight b2, threatening to take back the pawn. Knight d5. So this bishop is kind of trapped here. It doesn't have any moves. So white has to take here. Black takes on f4, gf4, and knight f6. So this is a very very solid position for white. It has a very it's just a very dynamically imbalanced position, which is supposed to be slightly in favor for white. But the problem is black doesn't really have any weaknesses in the position. White has the space advantage with these two pawns on the center, this great bishop, and these two good-looking knights. But black also have a very solid and safe pawn structure, two bishops, which might open up in the long run. And it really doesn't have too much of any kind of weaknesses. White goes knight e5, centralizing the knight. Bishop d7, e3, protecting this two pawns. Bishop e8. So this bishop looks very bad at first sight. It's just looking at its own pawn. But black has a very very nice idea. That is to move this knight and play f6 in the future, which would open up this bishop. This is just a very common idea in this kind of lines. White goes king h1 to get the rook to g1 and put some pressure on the king. Gukesh just steps away. Rook g1. It is actually nice to see that Gukesh still has 126 minutes, 1 hour 26 minutes, while white has 1 hour 6 minutes. So Gukesh is still in preparation here. Rook c8, rook d1. So the idea of rook c8 is to, in the future, go something like bishop d6, something like just a move like bishop a3, bishop d6, b1, queen e7, and then go for c5 in the near future. And white plays rook d1 just to prevent this kind of c5 break, keeping an eye on the queen. Another idea that white can have is rook a b1, bishop d6, a3, queen c7, and just try to go for some kind of b4 and knight c5 ideas, just solidifying two knights in the middle of the board. Bishop d6, bishop f3, opening up this file, queen e7. I actually don't understand this move, because firstly he's trying for c5, but white won't allow him to go c5 because white will just go knight a4, stopping any kind of c5 ideas. So I think he could have directly gone rook c7, knight d5, and try to go for f6 here. White stops this. Here actually black can go c5, which white really don't want to take because of this pin on the queen, and white just loses his knight. So white can go knight b6, while black will just go rook c7 and knight a8. This is like a very pretty draw, rook c8 and knight b6, which of course Gukesh didn't want to go into. So knight a4, rook c7, knight d3. Just moving away from here, also putting some more power on the c5 square, stopping this c5 break permanently. Black now goes back, queen d8, because this c5 is now never going to happen. White again puts some more pressure on the c5 square. Now black goes knight d5 finally. The good thing about knight d5 is this is just untouchable here. The only pawn that can try to attack this here is e4, but then the f4 pawn will become weak. White goes a3 with some b4 kind of ideas. Black goes f6. Finally, this bishop is going to see the light. Here, white goes for an interesting idea. This is kind of a double attack or double idea, as you can say, because white is threatening to take on a5. Also, white is threatening to play b4. Black just goes for the king's attack, ignoring this pawn with g5. White takes on a5. Gukesh goes bishop g6, hitting this. If this knight moves or goes something like this, he can just go queen e8 and continue with his plan like rook g7, bishop f5 or bishop h7, and then rook g8, g4, queen d2. He goes back, protecting this d3 knight and also being near the king. Gukesh goes queen e8, knight c5, rook g7. So slowly and steadily, Gukesh has brought all his pieces to the king side and is ready to launch the attack on the white king. He goes queen e2, rook g8, rook ce1. I really don't understand the point of this move. Actually, black isn't threatening anything, so white is also very confused what to do here. Gukesh moves back here so that there is never a e4, e5 idea. White again goes back queen d2. Here Gukesh plays bishop h7. White here could have played this interesting move f into g5. After hg5, white can just play e4, hitting this knight finally because this f4 pawn is now not there. If black goes knight f4, white can just take bishop f4, queen d1, and then slowly white will stabilize the position with knight d3, hitting this bishop g4, f3, and all. The difference between taking here and after bishop h7 is that if white had taken f into g5 instead of queen d2, then hg5, e4, black has this interesting move rook h7, hitting this h2 pawn. I'm threatening a mating one. So after bishop h7, white goes queen d1. He doesn't really see this idea, but so Gukesh plays b6, hitting this knight. The point is knight e4 can be met with g4, pushing this bishop back, and then again he can slowly move something like queen f7, bishop f5. But white just plays very passively. He just moves to the other side of the board where there's no action. You can see there's a brilliant idea, like these pawns are covering all these important squares of the white knights, and this bishop is just keeping an eye on this pawn. So even that white is a pawn up here, white is not able to do anything. Black goes g4, bishop g2, queen h5. So here there is a very nice maneuver, already protecting the king and also bringing the recently outskirted knight bc1. So the point is this g4 pawn is pinned by this d1 queen. So black really cannot go g3, and white now is threatening knight e2 and knight g3, stopping any kind of kingside attack there. But white really doesn't find it, but instead he just blunders away immediately, playing queen d2, removing the pin and allowing black to go just g3. Black plays g3 immediately, takes rook g3, e4. This is just already lost because the threat of black was to just take here something like knight c1. Black would just take and bishop e4. This bishop becomes like the monster. It's really a big journey from c8, e8, g6, h7, and then finally landing on e4 and killing the white king. White goes e4, rook 8 g4 here. The point is, if white goes g into e into d5, black will go rook d3 here with the support of this bishop. So this knight is still untouchable. White goes queen e2, putting the pin back on this g4 rook and the h5 queen. Black just takes back the pawn, knight f4, knight into f4, bishop into f4. So the material is now still 1 pawn down, but all these pieces are so active and threatening here. It's just mate. White really can't do anything. Like if white plays something like a4, like just a random move, then black can have a very pretty mate with the queen sacrifice, queen h2, king h2, rook h4, bishop h3, and rook h3 mate. So white plays bishop f3 to top queen into h2, and Gukesh just finishes the game immediately. Just rook f3. If white goes queen f3, then black will just go rook g1, and queen f3, taking the queen. Also, it's just mate. If white doesn't go here, if he goes rook g4, then black will just take queen g4, rook g1, and he can just move away like queen g3. And it's just a whole piece up, and it's soon going to be made. So this was the first board game of Indian team in the second round of Chess Olympiad 2024. I'll be covering the next 3 games in separate videos. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this kind of content and want to see the next updates. Thank you very much.